So first of all, I'd like to thank you all so much for attending this virtual event today. This virtual sort of meeting is what we've been getting used to a lot during these strange times. So thank you so much. It's really exciting to put on an event like this, which is very close to our hearts with what's been going on with, you know, the current situation, Fairtrade and climate change. So thank you very much for taking the time to be on the call today. That's fantastic. So my name is Marnie Richards and I'm the Developing Young People Coordinator for the Midcounties Co-operative. And I work closely with Mike Pickering, who is our Sustainability Manager, who's joining me today on this call to talk about what we've been doing regarding climate change and sustainability. And I'm delighted to announce that Sarah Brazier is here, joins us from the Fairtrade Foundation, and she's the communications, the community campaign manager. Without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Sarah, which is our guest speaker today, who is the communities campaign manager from the Fairtrade Foundation. So am I all right, okay to hand over to you, Sarah?
Absolutely, thanks Marnie. Thank you so much for inviting me to come along and talk to you guys today. I'm going to attempt to share the slides I've prepared, and if they don't work, then I'm going to go with it. Okay, so yeah, thanks for having me along today. Marnie's asked me to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 on farmers and workers in the Global South that Fairtrade works with. So I'm going to talk about that for about 10 minutes and then sort of end up with a few kind of, I guess, things that you guys can do after I've shared some of this. So I think the first thing to say is that obviously the pandemic has been a huge, unwelcome and frightening moment for everybody. I think in the UK, we've seen that translate into various types of fear, fear of food shortages, fear of running out of toilet roll for some reason that I've yet to understand, people panic buying, empty supermarket shelves, strained retailers, etc. So it has been a really hard time, and it's been hard for vulnerable communities here in the UK as well. And obviously that has been incredibly stressful and a hard time for producers and farmers and workers that are working in the Global South. So I guess I just wanted to share some of this information with you. So 50% of the food we buy here in the UK that we've been panicking about running out of comes from abroad, and 10 to 15% of that is from developing countries, grown by smallholder farmers and workers. And as the pandemic has unfolded and continued, some of the latest forecasts have been pretty scary. So sort of saying that around half a billion people could be pushed further into poverty in which they're already living by the effects that are being caused by this pandemic growing and continuing to grow. So some of the impacts for farmers and workers, and I just wanted to, I guess, share this with you, the kind of, I guess, struggles that they're facing at the moment. So I wanted to share a few stats around what this really means for farmers and workers in the Global South. So some examples, tea workers saw the price of tea plunge by about 40%. This was largely due to import restrictions imposed by some of the world's biggest buyers off the back of the pandemic. In Africa, Uganda and Ethiopia, flour farms are exporting less than a third of their usual daily production to Europe, and flour exporting to Europe actually makes up about 70% of their market. So it's a huge amount of their income that they're not receiving at the moment. The price of cocoa, that has fallen by around 25%. So Ghana's cocoa revenue is expected to receive a shortfall of about $1 billion, which will affect the entire sector. So some of you may know, if you've been following our campaigns over the last couple of years, about 70% of the world's cocoa comes from West Africa. And then the coffee sector has been impacted in different ways. So it kind of depends on the country's harvest season. But if movement restrictions continue globally, then the ability to produce coffee is going to become incredibly challenging indeed. And the other thing, I guess, to think about is it's not just about the actual export situation that's happening right now. So the impacts of that are impacts on communities in which those markets rely. So we have had some feedback, for example, that COVID has affected these communities in different countless ways. So some of the I guess progression that has been made around gender equality is being set back. It's kind of unraveling decades of progress. Schools are shutting down. So the future for those young people that have been able to access education is starting to topple over because they're no longer able to access that. And it's of course widened the gap between the rich and the poor. So this is a conversation that we've had here in the UK, but it is going to be a lot harder for people that are living in poverty to continue to get their education whilst COVID is bringing down their income so rapidly. So that's, I guess, some of the challenges. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the support that Fairtrade has been able to give at this time. But I think it's important to say that there aren't really any good stories, is the reality. It has been a very challenging time, and it continues to be challenging. So I think the best that we can all do is support. And I want to talk about a bit of the way that Fairtrade has been able to do that. So over the last 25 years, Fairtrade has kind of empowered producers to organise themselves into farmer cooperatives and communities, and this has actually helped them to improve their negotiating position within supply chains, but it's actually had some incredible benefits in the situation with the pandemic. So whilst they have also been able to, I guess, take ownership of their businesses and become more present in global markets, negotiating better prices for their products, it also provides a strength in numbers. So it gives farmers and workers access to shared networks of knowledge and training, and the ability to access finance. And some of those things have been incredibly important against the backdrop of this pandemic and the impact that has had on movement and their ability to access income at this time. So I get a couple of examples that I wanted to give you. So in India, the local government took measures to protect the health of people working on the tea estates. But with Fairtrade, they've been able to go a little bit further. So the certified tea estates have been able to reach out and train across their members to raise awareness on how to prevent the spread of COVID. So that's been things like creating posters, accessing training, to learn how to be more hygienic and stop that spreading as fast. In Peru, cocoa producers that are working in a cooperative there have been able to ensure continued purchase of their cocoa by supporting their members to adhere to social distancing guidelines. So there were movement restrictions imposed by the Peruvian government. That's been since mid-March. And so that means that the cooperatives can't always travel to train farmers in the social distancing protocols, but they've managed to take photographs at some of the closest cocoa collection centres and then send them across the cooperative by mobile phone. So they've been able to share how they've been working and enabling their businesses to keep running with each other because of this network of communication that they have. So it's been incredibly important in enabling them to keep their businesses moving. And one of the other things that Fairtrade did in response to the pandemic was to make the access to the Fairtrade premium more flexible. So most of you, I hopefully will know that we have the Fairtrade premium, which is an extra amount of money that people that work within the Fairtrade system receive on top of a price for their crop. And this they have been able to invest in various different ways over the years, but currently they're spending on enabling them to deal with the impacts of the pandemic. So in Uganda, the members of Fairtrade Coffee Cooperative use their Fairtrade premiums to donate sugar and maize flour and cooking oil and beans, as well as soap and hygiene products to a local government task force, which was then sent out across the community. In Brazil, they used some of their Fairtrade premium to support their community with cleaning supplies, providing masks, money, and also donating coffee to a local elderly home. In Ghana, the Fairtrade Farmers Union there, which has about 8,000 members, which is spread across 67 communities, so a huge area, They have been using their premium since 2018 to sponsor a local radio talk show. So usually that would be used to share or educate farmers on good agricultural practices, allowing them to kind of call in with their questions and improve the way that people farm. Really important given the context of moving on to talk about the challenges with climate change that we're going to talk about a little bit today as well. But this radio show recently has been focusing on educating farmers on preventative measures against the pandemic or against the COVID virus. So it's been providing people with information, helplines to contact, and that information has been able to reach about 25,000 listeners across the area. So that has been an incredible spend of the premium during this time. And we have actually recently just done a really interesting little bit of data collection study. So obviously the pandemic has been around for a while now, since March, in fact. So we've started looking at what the impacts have been of some of the support that's been put into place. So we did a bit of a data collection project with Fairtrade Africa to get some insights from workers, and we had some community reporters that were going out and getting some information from Fairtrade workers on flower farms. And the technology allowed us to kind of collect the data remotely so that workers could safely access a channel to express their concerns and share what it's been like for them. And as part of this, we asked about the support they were accessing as during the pandemic. And I'm really pleased to say that Fairtrade came out as one of the strongest bits of support that they had. So I wanted to share a nice little quote that we got back from that, which was, Fairtrade has just broken record on support of Naivasha, which is the community that we did this in Kenya. Everyone I talked to today, she or he would tell you that the only true and trustworthy support comes from Fairtrade. So that was, I guess, an amazing thing to hear, given the challenges that some of these people are facing, to know that that support has really had an impact for them. So I wanted to end, because I've only got 10 minutes and I know that's a lot to digest in a very short amount of time, but I guess I wanted to end to say that the challenge that developing countries face now is probably bigger than ever before. Not only do they have the pandemic, but they also are facing the climate crisis. And I've talked a little bit today about how that pandemic is bringing down incomes and continues to bring down incomes with the uncertainty of where that pandemic is going to stop and where that's going to go. And income is a huge part of how you become resilient or able to adapt to the climate crisis. We're going to be talking a little bit about this when we get to Fairtrade Fortnight next year, about just what income means in enabling people to be able to battle some of the challenges they're facing. So it's a huge, they're very, very much interlinked. You can't really look at them as two separate issues. So supporting Fairtrade will be more vital than ever before. Trading communities are going to change in ways we probably only could have imagined about a year ago. So I'm so grateful that you're all here today to hear me talk, to hear everyone else talk. It's really so important that we pull together to address this now. So continue to buy Fairtrade, support Fairtrade, follow us. Join us next Fairtrade Fortnight when we'll talk more about climate and the impacts of that on producers. And I guess I just wanted to also say, just before I finish, that we also know that the universities have signed up for the next awards. So we're incredibly grateful that they've done that. You can join a webinar on Fairtrade campaigns and how to get involved in Fairtrade Fortnight 2021. So that's on Wednesday, the 18th of November, and I'll send these details around afterwards. Sign up to the college newsletter, university newsletter for other information. Yeah, and just to get involved. And I wanted to end with one final quote, which was part of this data collection exercise that we did. And I just think it's like really relevant right now for everybody. So just going to quickly read it and then I'm going to finish. So this was a quote that came back from one of the farmers one of the workers on the flower farm. And it said, "In order to plan for new hope and moving forward, we need to focus on the future. Every storm passes and this too shall pass. Be optimistic and resilient. Optimistic is the tendency to see and judge things in the most positive way, and resilience is our ability to overcome difficult circumstances and grow in the face of adversity. These qualities will be the key in our efforts to recover.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That's really great insight to all things fair trade. So that then brings us to Mike, who is going to talk about climate change and what we're doing as a business and our links to fair trade. So I'll hand over to you then, Mike.
Thank you, Marnie, and good afternoon, everyone. Right. Thank you very much. I'll start, and again, thanks very much to Sarah as well for that previous presentation. It's really great to see the challenges for growers and suppliers and some examples of the capacity building going on. It was fantastic, and hopefully it's actually going to tie in with some of the bits I've got in this slide as well. So that was really good. So I'm going to talk. So first of all, I'm the Cooperative Social Responsibility Manager at Midcounties Co-operative, and I oversee our sustainability, so environmental sustainability agendas, also as our community outreach program. So I'm just going to go through what we're doing in this sort of area, and what I wanted to start off with was sort of a broader view really across the co-op movement, because Midcounties Co-operative are one of the largest independent cooperatives in the UK, but one of the great strengths of cooperation and the various cooperatives around the world is that we all work together, we all share the same values and principles, and it means that we can make a big difference on not just a local but a national but also a global scale. And one of the things that we are all doing is trying to be aligned to support the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Now, earlier this year, which is a real good milestone really for UK co-ops, the CEOs of the major co-op retail societies all signed up to a joint pledge to support the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and for us that was a real good step forward, because it means that we can all share our ideas with each other as we would always with co-ops, and it means hopefully we can maximise the impact we're making. From our point of view as a society, we're really pleased that so we take part in an annual benchmarking exercise with business in the community, where they look at how businesses are doing against these global goals, and we were classed as outstanding in our field. So it was really good for us to hear that, and we were also voted by business in the community as one of the responsible business champions in 2020. So it's certainly serious for us to support these goals, and we're doing a huge amount around these where we can, and really focusing on the ones we can make the biggest difference upon, and some highlighted there at the bottom of that slide are examples of that. And I think there are many synergies really with the UN goals and I believe fair trade. I think what fair trade stands for supports so many of those UN global goals. And obviously co-ops across the UK are really proud to be one of the major supporters of fair trade, largest convenience seller of fair trade in the UK. And we realise the advantage that the premiums are really making in those areas, and Sarah's gone through those impacts really well in the previous presentation. So we know the difference those premiums are making to supporting more sustainable communities in those areas, whether it be tree planting projects or better farming practices that are more sustainable. And that's why we are keen and will continue to champion the fair trade mark across what we do. And that's going to be a big aim and a big aspect of what we're doing across the co-op movement. If I just bring it down to a slightly more local level from Midcounties' point of view, because I know as part of this I was asked to just give an update on what specifically we're doing on more of a local level to fight climate change and do our bit. So the first element there, one of our biggest environmental impacts as any food retailer would be, is our energy usage. It's one of our major greenhouse gas emissions that we have. So we've done a lot of work over the years to try and reduce that. We have year-on-year targets, and we've successfully done that over the last 5 years, but also longer than that over the last 10 years and beyond. Very much around educating and raising awareness amongst our colleagues of what they can do in the workplace to save energy, but also ensuring where we can, making our properties as efficient as possible, whether that's LED lighting or doors on chillers, anything that we can be doing to really help in that area. Another area that's big for us, and certainly something that our members tell us that they really want us to focus on, as well as single-use plastics, which I'll come on to in a moment, is our recycling levels. We've increased recycling from 21% in 2010 to what is 99% now. A big aspect of that is our food waste goes to anaerobic digestion, which produces renewable energy enough to power 40 homes a year. So big impacts being made there. I think going beyond the sort of operational activity, we also do a lot to try and support local suppliers as well, and we've now got 200 local suppliers that we have in what we call our best of our counties range. And what we do with the best of the counties range and working with the local suppliers is we try and ensure that there's really good traceability of the production of the produce, and food provenance is really key in best of our county. So we work with those suppliers to really show that. So that's a really important part for us. The other interesting one for ourselves is through our Co-op Energy business, we support community renewable energy. So we've got a community power tariff, which is provided by those community energy groups, and we buy through power purchase agreements the power from these groups to enable them to bring this power to market, helping to develop the community renewable projects across the UK. So that's a really important one for us, and we're also really active and keen to share what we're doing with the other co-ops in the UK and around the world through actually early this year we were asked to present, which we're really pleased with, to present at a joint event with the UN and the International Cooperatives Alliance to just talk about some of the things we're doing. So through co-ops, we are sharing this activity, and it does enable us to really make a big influence on those global goals. As I'm sure you can imagine, our members are really keen for us to do what we can to tackle single-use plastics. And therefore, particularly over the recent years, we've been doing a lot around these areas. And one of the big things that we're really pleased to have achieved fairly recently is we've replaced single-use plastic carrier bags with compostable bags in all of our food stores. And this was a big project for us because we did a lot of work working with other co-op retailers to make sure we had a really good compostable bag that was not only good for customers to use, but can also be used in domestic composting and is aligned to the council's more industrial type composting methods. So this is a big thing for us, and that's now within all of our stores and is making a difference, as you can see on the slide there. Also in our own operations, we're doing our bit as well, trying to remove plastics and single-use plastics as much as possible. And certainly through Co-op branded products, one aspect is increasing the recyclability, so making it as easy as possible for customers to recycle using their own household recycling services. We've increased the percent of our products that can be recycled through this, and we've got an aim to get that up to 100%. We're also reducing over 1,000 tonnes of plastic through our products through innovations that we've made as well. So we know that's a big area for our members, and that's an area we've certainly been trying to focus on. Now, one thing that you may have heard of is our One Change campaign, because this is something we've introduced to try and engage our members and communities in this journey around taking climate action and tackling single-use plastics. And one of the things we've got is a pledge campaign where we ask members to pledge one change that they can make to help defend the environment. And what we do with these pledges is we then use them to create collaborative opportunities. So if someone has an idea that they want to do, we then connect them with other members to try and build up some sort of activity. And I'll come on to a couple of examples in a moment. We also use our One Change campaign to engage our partner schools. We work with 50 partner schools, and something that Marnie, who's obviously chairing this session, is very heavily involved with. And when it comes to collaborative community projects, so through the pledges, the picture on the bottom there in the middle of this slide is actually a turkey shed that's made out of eco bricks, and these are plastic bottles, waste plastic bottles that have been filled with other waste plastics. And working with the local community there, which is in the Cotswolds, it's a fairy tale farm near Chipping Norton. We actually created this turkey shed made out of eco bricks, so that's now in use, and it's a really good concept that people can get involved with, and that was a real good community effort. We've also led on a number of community tidy-ups, and last year we enabled over 380 bags of litter to be collected from the natural environment, working with 700 volunteers. So that's a big part for us. But the real thing for us with One Change that it can link into is we find it's transferable beyond this type of activity, and we're trying to use it to encourage behaviour change for responsible purchases, responsible consumption. During Fairtrade fortnight last year, we used One Change to encourage people to make one change to purchase a Fairtrade product. And that was the first time we'd sort of used that in that sort of area. And we hope to do a similar thing, obviously, with Fairtrade fortnight next year and similar campaigns moving forward. The final slide I've got here is just the quote there. I mentioned at the start of the presentation that the CEOs of the UK retail co-op societies all signed up to support the UN goals. And this is the quote on there. So this shows that synergy that the co-op societies have got and what we're trying to achieve. And I think with that sort of power behind it, and certainly working with international co-ops as well through the ICA, real good opportunities for us to support the UN global goals. What I'm going to do is very quickly, because I know Marnie will be thinking we've got to stick to time, and I think we're doing okay at the moment. I'm going to quickly show, if I can, a short video which is from our environmental ambassador,
I'm Carl Major. I'm the Environmental Ambassador for the Co-operative Midcounties, and I'm also the founder of the Paddle Against Plastic campaign. In 2018, I stand-up paddleboarded the entire length of the UK to connect people to the issue of plastic and also to the positive things that we can all be really proud of to help tackle it. We all have the ability to create positive change, and I think one of the most powerful aspects of the Co-operative Midcounties is that we form a caring community of both individuals and businesses who come together to support the well-being of both people and the environments here that sustain us. Our planet is facing devastating environmental collapse from climate change, plastic pollution, and biodiversity loss. And it can feel enormous and overwhelming, but we all have it within us to make positive change. And although it's not the individual's responsibility to tackle this alone, it's never been more important to take stock of our own environmental footprint and to limit it where we can. We've all heard about the plastic pollution crisis and how it's choking our waterways and oceans and killing millions of animals every year. But the beauty of this issue is there's something each and every one of us can do about it. Half the plastic that's made every year is single-use plastic. That's often food packaging, and it's stuff that we're using for a matter of minutes before it's discarded. We need to use less plastic in our society, and each and every one of us can decide to use less plastic in our lives. Last year, the Co-op Midcounties launched the One Change campaign to ask people to pledge one single plastic item that they were going to live without. So whether that's switching from plastic water bottles to a reusable water bottle or committing to taking your reusable bags to the shops, each of us can make a small change that collaboratively and throughout our whole community will make a big difference.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for that. Okay, so moving on. Bart, could we have a bit of an update from the Oxford Fairtrade Coalition and where you are and what's happening and what's going on moving forward?
We'll give it a go. Thank you very much, Marnie, and thanks, Mike, and thanks, Sarah, for those presentations. There's just such a lot of stuff to know and hear about, but it's difficult to get it all in. But thank you very much for what you're doing so far, and thanks everyone else for logging in and listening as well. My name's Bart Ashton, as I put in the chat first of all. My day job is the bursar at Lady Margaret Hall, one of the Oxford University colleges, where I am right now. But I guess I'm also speaking to you mainly today as the chair of the Oxford Fairtrade Coalition. So I'll just tell you briefly what that means, if I can. So the Fairtrade Coalition was founded before 2004, and Judith, who's also on the call, and possibly Carol, who's on the call, but definitely Judith reminded me that she was a founder member at that time a few years ago. I think Carol might have been as well. It was set up with a few core tasks. One was to make sure that Oxford became and then remained a fair trade city, which they did brilliantly in 2004, and Oxford still is a fair trade city. But also just to promote fair trade of all types, fair and ethical trade across the board, and certainly in the city here, and to keep that fair trade movement alive and relevant, and keep people informed about what's happening, which is what we're trying to do today, amongst other things. And being Oxford, we would also like to lead the way. There's a great history of fair trade starting in Oxford, and we would like to make sure that we continue to try and lead where we can. So I was reflecting a little bit on the drivers behind fair trade and why we wanted Oxford to be a city, a fair trade city. And it was really about addressing the imbalances that are around, that were around at the time, definitely, and were to do with the producers and growers and the supply chains and so on. But again, Sarah reminded me, it was about 8 or 9 months ago that Sarah and I met here at Lady Margaret Hall. And we would have definitely said, and I think we talked about at the time, that climate change was clearly a really influential thing that had come on since 2004, or come into people's consciousness and was really beginning to impact lots and lots of people, again in a disproportionate way, and had that same driver for wanting to make sure that people knew about it and could act better. And then, of course, that was in February, or possibly the very beginning of March. And since then, the pandemic that Sarah talked about and we all know about has also sort of put a triple layer onto all of that imbalance and the way it's affecting people disproportionately across the world. So it's just, the drivers for wanting to keep people informed about this keep on going. So whenever the coalition thinks about how it can make a difference here in Oxford to this global situation, we keep coming back to getting people together and explaining and being part of something that can hopefully inform and inspire and motivate people to change. So usually we'd love to do that in person, and we've done lots of amazing in-person events with great people. Just in the last couple of years, Erin Sahan, Sophia Mini, Sophie Tranchel, lots of different other people, local people, and people from the foundation and from the co-op have been involved in debates and talks, workshops, and more recently webinars and discussions we put on. Because we've got to keep on doing something. That the challenge, as we've heard, has not gone away. In fact, it's doubled or tripled. So the Fairtrade Coalition is about getting people to hear about this, to listen to it, to understand it, to know what they can do, and then start to do things, we hope. So we were thinking about what we could ask people to do, what kind of calls to action there are. So I think everyone in my first call to action can give themselves at least a pat on the back, because that was about learning. So anyone that's logged onto the call, well done, ticking that box. You've learned a bit more today, possibly, and you're kind of in first gear, I think, in terms of Oxford Fairtrade Coalition terms. But learning's obviously not enough. That should just be the first stepping stone, and we'd love you to go and support Fairtrade. Everybody on this call would love you to go and support Fairtrade and understand what those mean. Don't just buy it yourself. And Judith asked us to make sure we've got things together, so I'm just going to finish my Fairtrade coffee. Thanks, Judith. But go buy it yourself. Tell your family to buy it. Tell your friends to buy it. Go and find out where you can buy it and tell people about it in Oxford. There's lots of amazing places in Oxford. A couple of shops have just had to shut yesterday, of course, but there's still plenty of places online in Oxford and to get click and collect stuff. And hopefully, when you've done that a couple of times and thought about it while you're having your coffee or your chocolate, then you'll want to be acting and doing more and volunteering and get involved with us, helping put on sessions like this or real life talks in the future, volunteering on lots of different things. We'd like to get a map arranged so it's really easy for everyone to see exactly where you can buy anything Fairtrade in Oxford, and maybe get involved in some of the campaigns and some of the other things that some of our members have been involved in for a very long time, nationally, internationally, globally. And those are the kind of things that await. So you've already started by logging in. Move up to second and third gear as soon as you can. And I think that's probably what the Fairtrade Coalition in Oxford's about. Hope that's useful and possibly even motivating.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Bart. Thanks for that. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about my role within the co-op and what I'm currently heavily involved with. Following on from what Mike said, we have like 50 partner schools that we work with across our trading area and further education establishments, colleges and universities. And you'll see the logo behind me is our Young Cooperators Network. And that is about educating and engaging young people aged 16 to 30. And it's key topics for young people are fair trade, the environment, sustainability. So these are ways and providing opportunities for us to engage with young people and get them involved in their community and make a real difference. So a call to action, you know, for the colleagues on here and members that are part of the uni, it'd be great to connect following this, to look at what initiatives we could use moving forward to get involved, to campaign about fair trade and environmental plastics. I know it's a big thing at the moment, as Mike said, but it'd be great to actually connect and see how we can and develop these links moving forward from today to support, you know, Fair Trade Fortnight. I am aware that Sarah said about the awards for the universities that are taking place next year. So that is something we'd love to get involved with. So if we could talk about that later with some of you at the universities, that would be fantastic. Okay, so it's nearly 3 o'clock. The time has flown. Thank you so much for everyone's contribution today and taking the time to participate on this chat. It's been really engaging and to learn a lot and get a great insight. So following today, we will, cheers. We will I can send out the slides from today. I have got email addresses. If anyone's got any further questions, please send them to my email and I'll get some responses for you. And then hopefully this is the start of something, a great relationship that we can have regular meetings and updates. It'd be great to get one for Fairtrade Fortnight and build links and work together to promote fair trade and campaign and make that difference for everybody. So I'd just like to say thank you all very much for attending today, and I'll get the details and then the link to the YouTube of the video today out to you all.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Marnie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marnie.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mike. Thanks,
Thanks,
Judith.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.